And welcome to the premiere episode of the National Hockey Now podcast. I'm Jimmy Murphy, your host. Blake Thorne producing here, and we'll get right into it. We got a great guest to kick things off, Jeff Marek from Sportsnet and the Jeff Marek Show, and of course, 32 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Freeman as well. Joining me right now, Jeff, how you doing today?
How you doing, Murph? Good. I feel very lucky. I am very flattered. I get to be the first guest on the maiden voyage here of the pod. Oh. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, you are. You are. Wow. Thank you. And
I'm a big believer in set the bar low. So in that spirit, you brought me on as the first guest. So
the test pilot. Yeah, the pilot episode.
Exactly. Love your background, by the way. What's the shot of over your shoulder there?
That is, that's Bobby Orr goal, or Bobby Orr skating, rather. And that is from the Fours Pub. Do you ever make it in there, Jeff?
No, never did.
Garden. It's a very famous bar amongst hockey media, amongst general managers, scouts.
Nice.
Kind of, you go in there back in the day when it was the old Boston Garden, not TD Garden. It was a who's who would be there. And Russ Conway, you remember the late Russ Conway?
I used to talk to Russ every single week. Like back when
he was a big fan of you. I was just going to tell you that.
He was a wonderful man, and such a huge figure in hockey. And it's a great reminder to anyone really. And even to this day, I mean, he brought down Alan Eagleson from a tiny, tiny little corner of the media world in a very, very tiny newspaper. Like for anyone out there who's watching or listening to this right now, who thinks that they can't have an impact because they just occupy this tiny little space, Russ Conway and his dogged pursuit of Alan Eagleson and everything that went wrong and all the chicanery involved in that Players Association. That is a wonderful lesson in journalism and not worrying about how big your megaphone is, because he brought down one of the most powerful people in hockey. And maybe Murph, like Eagleson was, and you know this, like this is all for all you listeners and viewers, Eagleson was a giant in the industry, and Conway completely took him down for the betterment of the entire, of the entire, not just the Players Association, but the entire sport of hockey.
And I'll tell you, so he introduced me to that bar, the Fours, and like he would take me in there after a game, or sometimes we'd go for dinner there on an off night, and would sit with former Bruins, former NHLers, whether it be Orr, Busick, guys from the era that he covered first, and guys the Eagleson was involved with, and just the way they admired him, you could just see the way they admired him and how grateful they were for him.
Of course.
And then it was great for me because like, hey, if you're a friend of Russ, you're a friend of ours. And so that was how I kind of networked into the business and built my contacts. And, I miss Russ. He was a great character. Always had some fun with him up in Hampton Beach as well in New Hampshire. So good guy.
Yeah. Was a wonderful and very important person in the business. I cherished every single conversation that I had, and he taught me a ton.
He really does.
He really taught me a ton. So we're singing from the same hymn book here, Murph, about the late great Russ Conway.
And we all need somebody like that when you get into
100%.
For people getting into the business right now, even like our producer Blake Thorne here, don't be afraid to go up to older reporters and just pick their brain. You'd be surprised how many of them will love talking to you and telling stories. I'm probably one of them now because I'm getting into that category.
You know why? Because all the colleagues have already heard their stories and they're sick of them. So now they got someone fresh they can tell their stories to. So let that be advice to you, right, Murph? If you're young and you say, oh, someone has been in the industry for 40 years, am I going to go talk to him or her? Yeah, do it. Because trust me, they've exhausted everyone else's attention with their stories. So you're fresh meat for them.
Exactly. And it's good network. Great network.
It is.
Hey, listen, lots going on here. Jeff, we were just talking about it off the air. There's a lot of buzz today. John Buccigross put a tweet out about 2 hours ago saying, quote, I hear something insane is going on with the Bruins before July 1st. Now, I spoke with you on your show yesterday, telling you, obviously, we know it's no secret that Don Sweeney's working the phones hard to get cap flexibility. But we were trying to figure out, who could be going out. And, there's a lot of obvious names. You look at what they've got left on their term and their cap hit, whether it be a Taylor Hall, a Derek Forbert, a Matt Grzelcyk. But, for a while now, Linus Ullmark's name has been out there, and they have to sign Jeremy Swayman. And again, that's the name I'm hearing today. And it's just astonishing that could happen with a guy that's about to win the Vezina, probably, that we would see in the same week. So just your take on the potential of that happening.
Well, I don't know that we should be surprised. And that was a wonderful conversation we had yesterday. And I agree with a lot of your points. And we talked about how, Taylor Hall may be like at this point with this Boston Bruins team, a luxury item. Excellent, outstanding player, but is he a luxury item? To the point about Ullmark, if you look around the NHL landscape right now, it's and if you're trying to trade a goaltender, you have a lot of competition. Right. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is sort of headlined by Connor Hellebuck. But right now, if you want a netminder, you can get one. And yes. I wonder how much right now, since there are so many potential goaltenders on the market, even though right now, like one of the lessons of the Stanley Cup this year is, you can't burn out your goaltenders. Ask the Dallas Stars about Jake Ottinger and what happened there versus, how many games Sergei Bobrovsky played or how many games Adin Hill played. You do need I don't want to say a 50-50 split, but maybe a 60-40 split right now. So you do need a couple of goaltenders, like good quality NHL goaltenders. But right now there's a lot of them available. So as much as, if Sweeney wants to look at doing something with Linus Ullmark, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hit that home run that you want. To your point, Murph, like this guy might win the Vezina Trophy. I think odds are that he's going to win the Vezina Trophy. I just don't know that you're going to see what would in other years be a sizable return. I might be way off on this as well, but I get the sense that the returns right now for goaltenders aren't going to be what they normally would be, considering, the level that Linus Ullmark has played at this season. You're on mute, Murph.
Mistake again, and I am saying I'm a veteran. No, look, I think you're absolutely right, Jeff. And I think if you wanted to maximize the value, it's got to be a big package deal or something, and you got to get creative and include more people in it.
They want to re-sign Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah, they really do.
And as you and I discussed on my show yesterday, man, he looks like a Boston Bruin. He plays like a Boston Bruin. I know I got this old stereotype of that picture over your shoulder right now, but that's what I think of when I think of the Boston Bruins. But he looks like he was made to wear that black and gold. So that really shouldn't surprise anybody. I know we're all talking about Calgary and Winnipeg, and to some extent the Philadelphia Flyers as being some of the friskier teams heading into the draft in Nashville. But I think you're very much onto something here, like the Boston Bruins in short order to do what they want to do. And again, there are still some decisions on the horizon. You've written about David Krejci. We're all wondering about Patrice Bergeron here. I don't think it should surprise anybody, that Sweeney's trying to work it to give himself some flexibility here. I don't think that should come as a shock to anybody.
For sure. You bring up some good teams there. Good segue there. Great minds think alike. The Calgary Flames. What is going on, Jeff?
Yeah. You know what I think? I was talking about this today on the radio show. Here's what I hear, and as this continues and as this goes on, I really think that what we're seeing now is still the shockwaves of the Battle of Alberta playoff series last year, and how the Edmonton Oilers, it's going to sound harsh, Murph, but I really think it's true, broke the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
They just didn't beat the Calgary Flames. They broke the Calgary Flames. Yep. And if you look at everything that's happened since, now, Edmonton wins that series, and then Johnny Gaudreau pieces out. Matthew Tkachuk says he's not coming back. I can just take my QO and split after a year, or we can, put some type of deal together and work together on getting me somewhere else. to say nothing of the season the Calgary Flames had, to say nothing of the season that Jacob Markstrom had. Like Markstrom himself, like, you know, even last year when Elliot and I were in Paris for the NHL European Players Tour, we talked to Markstrom about essentially, to be blunt, the kryptonite that's always been that's always been for Jacob Markstrom, which is the Edmonton Oilers, and we saw it play itself out last year in the playoffs. And it just seems as if Murph, and we're seeing it now with, you know, more players. You know, Noah Hannafin wants to go back and play in the United States. Hey, he's 1 year away from free agency. You've earned that right. Tyler Toffoli, we're waiting on an answer from Lindholm. We'll see what happens with Backlund at center and go right down the list. There's a new general manager. There's an entirely new coaching staff there. I shouldn't say entirely. I mean, people have been there before, but like there's a new coaching staff. There's a new head coach in Ryan Huska. Mark Savard comes in as announced last night. Things are different. And I still think that what we're seeing is the effects of what Edmonton was able to do to Calgary, because that was such, as you remember, that was an emotional series. It's one of the best rivalries in the history of the NHL, Calgary and Edmonton. And for Edmonton to do to Calgary and the way that they did it, I think really cracked the spine of the Calgary Flames, more so mentally than physically. But I still think that these scars are deep, and you're still seeing the effects of that series.
Okay, then let's switch over to the other team in turmoil right now, and that's the Winnipeg Jets, with a lot of guys seemingly on their way out.
Yeah.
What do you think broke the spine of them?
Kevin Cheveldayoff, as a general manager, has the hardest job in the NHL. And that's why I think they sign a lot of their players to long-term deals. Like once they identify their players, they lock them up long-term.
Right.
It's tough to get players to commit to that market and stay long-term. So I think what you're looking at now with the Winnipeg Jets is this latest version of Winnipeg, which a lot of us, and I count myself as one of them, thought they had Stanley Cups in them. Like how many times did we look at the Winnipeg Jets and say, this team's a cup contender?
Yeah.
This team, like you look at every single position. Now, if you're looking for like that one, the Oilers moment for the Calgary Flames, the one that's the one moment that started everything and all the dominoes have fallen since. Yep. I think it's when Dustin Byfuglien walked away.
Ooh, we're going way back.
Honestly, I really do. And ever since then, it's kind of been a slow march to where we're at right now. We have all these players that are a year out, and a market like Winnipeg can't afford to let players play out their contracts and walk away for nothing. Like there has to be something for Kevin Cheveldayoff to show for Connor Hellebuck, for Mark Scheifele. The Pierre-Luc Dubois situation is a little bit of a different one here. But Cheveldayoff is in a position now where, you know, he can't just bring in green bananas. Like it can't just be prospects and picks. Like he needs, you know, young players, preferably under contract, preferably with some term here. But if you're asking like, what's the moment that sort of started to break this version of the Winnipeg Jets, I really do think it was Dustin Byfuglien, because he was one of the most unique individuals in the game. He had a skill set that nobody else, certainly on this team or maybe even in the NHL, had. I'll be honest with you, Murph, and your listeners and viewers can go and watch this thing. It's on YouTube. He laid like maybe the hardest body check I've ever seen in my life when he hit Mark Stone. Still to this day, I don't know how Mark Stone got up. I thought they'd need a spatula to get him off the ice. Perfect hit, clean hit, perfectly timed.
Yeah, I wish we could see more of that.
Right? Yeah, and you don't. But Byfuglien had that skill set, and it seems as if ever since then, slowly but surely, this team has kind of, you know, taken steps the wrong way as opposed to the right way. If you're looking for that one moment, I think it's Byfuglien.
Yeah, you know, another moment, and I agree with you, but one moment I look to just on the ice as a game or a series, we talked about the Edmonton-Calgary, is them getting swept by the Montreal Canadiens in the bubble. Or still, I guess it wasn't the bubble then, but it's semi-bubble, 2021.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always look at, we've seen so many times in recent years, Jeff, that teams that are picked to go far in the playoffs maybe get knocked out a lot earlier than people expect, whether it's the first or second round, but they almost take that and use it as a learning experience to bounce back the next year and go deeper. And I kind of felt like, okay, when that happened, I remember them. It's like, wow, I didn't see that coming. But, maybe that's what this team needs to take the next step. I saw it way back. I'll never forget it with the Boston Bruins when they lost to the Flyers. I don't think the Bruins win the Cup in 2011 if they don't blow that lead to the Flyers in 2010. I think that's how monumental that was in terms of them wanting to redeem themselves and prove everyone wrong the next year. We never saw the Jets prove anyone wrong since that point.
Yeah.
It's only it continued to go down. So it's almost like they had this team where it's like, wow, they are built for the playoffs, and then poof.
They got goalied, man. Like Carey Price was insane. But maybe here's another example of what you're talking about here. And it helped, lead to a dynasty. And that was the 83 Stanley Cup final with the New York Islanders and the Edmonton Oilers.
Yep.
Right. I mean, Oilers are, there's the great story about Wayne Gretzky walking by the Islanders room. They just won the Stanley Cup and there's ice packs
bags on them and everything.
And they're like, oh, and then meanwhile, the Oilers are okay. We're fresh as a daisy still. We're going to go party. And there's all these grizzled veterans. They're all missing teeth and they got the beards and they got ice packs and balding heads. And like, oh, that's how you win the Stanley Cup. That's what you need to do. But you're right. Like, maybe it wasn't so much Dustin Buffalo. Maybe it was Carey Price that broke the Winnipeg Jets. But I mean, I think that, I think you're right. I think it was that eventual decline. I thought, going into that playoff, because we think of, in Canada, we made a lot about the Canadian division. Obviously, there was always the going into that season, who was the best team in Canada? I thought it was Winnipeg Jets. I thought it was going to be the Winnipeg Jets, and it was going to be Winnipeg Jets, stomping everybody. And then here comes, Carey Price to remind everybody that, hey, I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame here in the future. I'm going to show you why. And it was Carey Price that, stole yet another series. He was great that year. He's just fantastic.
I'm with you, Jeff. Well, listen, before we let you go, just quickly, we didn't get to touch on the draft. I know everybody's talking about what's going to happen in that top 5 there and Mishkov and all that. But who's a guy a prospect you have your eye on right now that maybe isn't projected in the top 10 that could slide in there?
I really like a guy by the name of Matt Wood. I really do. And I'll tell you, and he's from the Nanaimo, BC, played the BCHL and went to Connecticut. I've had a few people tell me that there's, again, whenever you drop names, it's like, whoa, what are you saying here? There's some people that have told me they see some Tage Thompson in this guy.
Wow.
And as teams look now for, like, I think if you're a team that has a couple of picks in the first round, maybe you take this guy a little bit higher than you might. But I mean, 6'4", 200 pounds, forward, good skill set. You look at the ceiling and it's high. I don't know. I wonder about him. I wonder about Wood, if he could be that surprise guy. We'll see. But if you're asking for one guy that's got my curiosity.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, I'll tell you this, Jeff. It's interesting to me because I grew up in New England, right? Seeing a guy like that from UConn. When I grew up, UConn was basketball, but seeing them now have hockey players, I love it. And UMass, my alma mater too. UMass Amherst has been cranking out players too. So it's nice to see some of these schools that weren't known for hockey when I was growing up.
For sure.
Getting the love now. But Jeff, always a pleasure, my friend. I know you gotta go. Thanks a lot. And I won't be in Nashville, but I might be up in TO this summer. So if I am, I'll get you up.
Look me up.
All right, buddy.
You look me up. Always cherish our conversations and our time together. Thanks, Murph. You be good. Best of luck with the pod.
Right. Sounds good, man. That's Jeff Marek joining us here on the National Hockey Now podcast. And good times, man. Always a good time with Jeff. I love going on his show, obviously, on Jeff Marek's show. He just knows his stuff. Very well connected. Been around for a while and really one of those guys that's been in radio forever, and he's still going, which is hard to say right now. And we're gonna bring in my producer right now, Blake. Blake, look, speaking of that, you're young, you're trying to get into podcasting and radio. Do not do the radio part. I am telling you right now. Okay?
Fair.
Like you
take
just
your advice.
It is going down the tubes, man. I don't know if you've been seeing what's happening up in Canada with the TSN channels.
I've seen all the layoffs and whatnot and all that stuff.
These guys literally showed up. I know a lot of the guys that were in the Edmonton one. They showed up for their morning show, and 15 minutes before they're going on the air, like, oh, we're done. The station's done. It's over. It's complete.
Wow. That is just a kick in the butt. That's terrible. Jesus.
There's no money in it. It's ruthless. Yeah. Podcasting is where it's at, and that's why you're heading in the right direction with that.
All the digital stuff, it's taken over.
Yeah, I see a little. And by the way, I didn't realize my notes to you were going out to the YouTube channel.
Yep.
So sorry to the viewers right now. Music and free, music up. That's how it goes behind the scenes, right? So I'll text you that. But Del Carey saying loves Marek. Guy's a true steward of the game. He really is. He knows the game, man. He's like an encyclopedia of the game. It's fun to have him on. You ever listen to his show?
A few times. Yeah. I don't get too often because I don't got Sportsnet, but
you can go on if you go to TuneIn. You ever use that app?
Oh no.
TuneIn is a great app. If you want to listen to other radio shows in other cities all over the world, go to TuneIn and then type in Sportsnet 590. I'll send you the link, and you can listen to him. He's on noon to 12, Monday through Friday.
Will do.
So it's a must.
He's a very insightful guy.
I don't listen to Boston radio because, to be frank, it's a bunch of macho dudes screaming at each other, and all they talk about is the Patriots, even when it's not the Patriots season. There's never hockey talk. So I'm listening to Canadian channels, man. I listen to my buddy Mitch Melnick up in Montreal, TSN 690. He's a good listen from 3 to 6 or 2 to 6 every Monday through Friday. So those are the way to go if you want good hockey talk, great guests, what have you. And that's where it's at. That's where you find out. I'm going to text our the boss, so to speak.
Mr. Kingerski
texting me right now as I was on with Jeff. There's stuff buzzing about the Boston Bruins right now. I don't know when it's going to go down, but something is amiss, so to speak.
It's going to go down in the next 7 to 10 days. So
no, when it will go down is tomorrow when I'm with my daughter for the last time in 2 weeks because she's away in North Carolina. So I've got her for the whole day, and I'm going to get an email from the Bruins. I'm saying, so I've got her from like 11 to 5, let's say about 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Because the Bruins are really good at that.
Connor Ryan always tweets about that. He's always on a plane when something big goes down.
There's never been a team. I don't know if you know what it's called, what a news dump is. A news dump is when you get news out there that you don't want to spread quick and you don't want to have to deal with it. So you get it out when you know people aren't necessarily paying attention. Now, obviously, with the advent of social media and how immediate everything is, everybody's always paying attention.
Yeah.
But, let's say like on a Friday, 5 to 7, dinner time, everybody's at work, going to go get a couple drinks at the local, grab a burger and get the weekend going, and boom.
Twitter's blowing up.
I'll tell you a classic one. Blake was I'll never forget this. So now I don't know if you'll know the significance of this. And when it comes to the Bruins and a news dump, July 4th, 2013. What happened on that day?
I was a young lad back then. I have no clue, Jimmy.
Okay, how old are you now?
I'm 22. I was 13 back then. Born in 2000.
You're still old enough. You were following, playing hockey, right?
I was playing hockey, but I more so wasn't like paying attention to the news side of it, just like the game,
Okay, well, I'll give you a hint. I'll give you one hint, and it's a pretty good one. What is a trade that goes down in infamy for the Boston Bruins? It was Joe Thornton, 2003, and then 10 years later, there was...
It was a trade with the Leafs?
No.
I'm drawing a blank here, Jimmy. I don't want to look too stupid on the first episode.
The Bruins took him number 2 overall.
Oh, Tyler Seguin.
There you go.
I gotcha.
All right. Guess where I was when that trade went down? It's the 4th of July.
Oh, on the beach.
Afternoon.
On the beach with a couple Guinnesses.
No. Out in Boston Harbor with hardly any reception. And my phone starts buzzing. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, hope everybody's okay. And then, the Bruins have just traded Tyler Seguin.
On the 4th?
Press conference, teleconference They didn't have Zoom then, so it was just a teleconference in 30 minutes. And I'm way out by like, I forget what the island is, way out in Boston Harbor, past the
Castle Island.
Yeah, way past there. Something else,
okay.
Block Island maybe.
Oh,
and
okay,
so I look at my buddy whose boat it is, and he's driving. I'm like, dude, crank this thing. I got to get in shore. I need to get back to shore.
Go back to the shore.
He's like, why? I'm like, Tyler Seguin just got traded. He's like, what? So he flies it in, and I just made it in time to get reception on the dock, and I did the trade call there, and then I booked it.
That's
home
an all-timer. That's definitely an all-timer. News dump.
I also, when they got Nathan Horton in 2010, the year before they won the Cup, I was out in I forget the name of the lake, somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, about an hour north of Denver. I was fishing with my friend out there because what was going on was the draft. That was the year they actually drafted Seguin, ironically. So they had the draft in LA that year, and the Red Sox were playing the Rockies a couple days before the draft, like 3 or 4 days actually. And I said, hey, I got my old friend from UMass, Brian Davis. He lives out in Denver, and he invited me out. I said, come out, we'll see the Red Sox game, and then you can fly on to LA for the draft. And so sure enough, we're out there fishing, and I get a text from one of my sources, and he's like, dude, Bruins are about to get Nathan Horton. Go with it. Green light. It's done. It's a done deal. You can do this, right? I couldn't get reception.
Oh,
so again, we had to motor the boat in. Get to
they just shore. Like the dump news when you at the worst times.
Yeah, twice I was out in the boat that's happened. But look, we've got the president of National Hockey now, and the head of Pittsburgh Hockey now joining us now, Dan Kingerski. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
How are you doing?
Just telling stories about classic news dumps by the Boston Bruins because they're one of the best at it. And I was telling Blake how twice when a big trade went down, I was out on a boat, once in a lake in the Rocky Mountains and once in the Boston Harbor on the 4th of July when they traded Tyler Seguin. And I had to get the driver of the boat to book it back in so I could get reception for the teleconference.
I wrote the Marcus Pettersson, or actually I broke the Marcus Pettersson contract story 2 years ago from a Burger King parking lot. Yeah. I was like, oh crap. And I literally, I'm trying to figure out, okay, like what gas station, what little restaurant's going to have Wi-Fi. I saw Burger King. I flew into the parking lot, and I'm like typing on the steering wheel. And if you haven't done that, you're not a writer.
I could do a music reference here. So you were like Humpty Dumpty, right? In Burger King, but not in the bathroom.
No, I was not in the
bathroom. Anyhow, my friend. So what's going on in Pittsburgh land right now? We'll bounce around the NHL in a bit, but what are we feeling about the Penguins as we head towards the draft with the NHL trade rumors burning up, free agency right ahead of that? What's the latest on them?
Well, I just got back from a Kyle Dubas press conference, actually. This is unique in Pittsburgh where he spoke for 20 minutes. We're used to 5 and 10 minutes. Here's 3 questions. Get out, guys. He went for 20 minutes. Basically, what Dubas did was he closed the door on big-name free agents, which surprised me a little bit with Tyler Bertuzzi kind of lurking out there. I thought he'd be a great fit for Pittsburgh. He basically closed and locked the door on a big-name, long-term, big-money contract in free agency. What he is... and he's going to stir the trade rumors. He opened the door to weaponizing the Penguins' salary cap space. They've got just over $20 million. And I think basically what they're going to do is look at those unwanted or superfluous contracts around the NHL. Some guys teams can't afford, and they're going to go shopping, and they're going to try to, buy on the cheap, maybe move a guy like Mikael Granlund in that deal because... Again, Dubas basically closed the door on buying him out on Friday. So Granlund at best will be a trade. That's just kind of where we're going to be with the Penguins.
Anything on the goalie situation there?
No. They've had some conversations with Tristan Jarry. Dubas was a little bit cryptic. Basically, I think he kind of punted his answer to the next week. They want to know before the draft what they're dealing with so that they can tell the player, all right, you can go handshake teams at the draft and, or your agent can anyway. and we're going to go shopping. I think that's where we're at, or the next 5 days, 6 days is going to be huge for the Penguins.
Well, we just spoke to Jeff Marek, and we were talking about the goalie trade market right now and how many big name goalies are on the market. And again, there's buzz today. John Buccigross had a kind of a cryptic tweet saying, "I'm hearing the Bruins are up to something insane before July 1st. So immediately I looked around, and in the common thread from people I spoke to this morning and just right before we came on here was again Linus Ullmark. So, I said to Jeff, what could they get? And Jeff made a great point. He's like, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know if this is the right time to be trading a goalie because there's so many available that you're not going to have that value there. So unless, as we agreed, it becomes a multiplayer deal or picks or what have you, some kind of blockbuster, you can get a good goalie right now on the market. I won't say the word cheap, but for a nice price. Let's just say that.
This is probably the best goalie crop in a decade or more, is it not? I mean, look, if Connor Hellebuck were not on the market and you're looking at Tristan Jarry, free agent, or John Gibson via trade, then you're like, oh, okay. But knowing that Nashville, even though Barry Trotz kind of shut down the trade rumors, but knowing that he's out there if you have enough capital to get him, with Hellebuck, with Jarry, who am I missing? Maybe Ullmark. Although Murph, my perception from the outside of Boston, maybe you have a different one from the inside looking out, is obviously Ullmark scuffled and struggled in Buffalo for a number of years. They very much needed him to come through, and he didn't for them. He had a Vezina Trophy season, but then when the chips were on the table, he didn't. He looked like the Linus Ullmark that the Buffalo Sabres were like, no thanks. I think that really dings his value, right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
I guess Chris Osgood, who was Mike Vernon, another guy going into the Hall of Fame, obviously. These guys were in the regular season, right? They were mediocre guys, but when the chips were on the table in the playoffs, when it really counted, they were brilliant. And therefore their value, I think, was much higher. Ullmark seems to be the inverse. So I don't know if I'm looking at Bruins trades, I don't know if I look at Ullmark.
Yeah, and that's not just once now, Dan. Remember the year before when they lost to Carolina in that series, Swayman was the goalie by game 5. He only lasted 4 games in that series.
I had forgotten that. So, yeah.
So, recency bias does not look good right now for Linus Ullmark when it comes to his trade value. Hey, let's get away from the goalie market here. We've kind of beat that one down here. I look around. We talked about Calgary and Winnipeg with Jeff. I want to get your take on a team maybe that no one's talking about that could really shake things up at the draft in terms of the trade market. I've got one in mind, but I'll go to you first.
Ooh, teams that could shake things up in the trade
market. No one's seeing right now.
Well, I think Pittsburgh entered the conversation today. Pittsburgh entered the chat, as the kids would say. I think the New Jersey Devils are lurking. They're looking for that solidifying piece, be it a goalie, be it, a bit more grit in their lineup, whatever that might be. I think the Rangers might get pushed into a situation where they have to unload to afford some of these guys long term, and that could put some real talent on the trade market, right? It's always such a crapshoot. You never quite know if a GM has the courage of his convictions to follow through on the reality that he knows to be true, or if he's willing to accept a good enough reality, right? Okay, yeah, we'll be good. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe I'll find something down the road, rather than really being courageous. Obviously, Bill Zito in Florida last year was courageous, going after Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, good Lord, look what that did. But a lot of guys don't do that. They don't step up to the plate and go for it when it's there. So, I guess we can talk about those teams, but which GMs have the guts?
Yeah, well, I'll look at one, and I think we've been waiting for it, and I've been following our guy in LA with LA Hockey Now, Austin Stanovich, I hope I pronounced his name right, in LA, and what he's been writing, he's definitely not happy with the slow build of the rebuild there. And I think you and I have talked about this plenty of times off the air and even in print, that we've been waiting for this team to utilize the draft capital they have, the prospects they have, to take it to the next level. And as Austin said, okay, well that time's here, and it's passing you by right now if you don't do anything. I would watch Rob Blake. I think he's up to something big. They've been linked to Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I can see why. I totally agree with that. I would watch him for sure. Another team I'd look at, and I don't think it's necessarily a surprise, but not many people are talking about it except for our guys at Detroit Hockey Now, is the Red Wings. I mean, Steve Yzerman's got a lot of arsenal to deal with. And that's a team that I think would love to get a center. They've been connected to Travis Konechny a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense. So those are two teams that I've got my eye on to shake it up. And then, of course, as we have to every year at the draft, Dan, watch the host team, right? Every host team wants to make a splash. This year it's the Nashville Predators. We've already heard Saros' name out there. I don't know how available he really is, but still keep an eye on them as well.
I disagree with everyone on the LA Kings. I think the slow and steady course is the right way. I read Austin's stuff, and obviously I appreciate a good opinion that's supported by facts. And Austin brought the goods there. Mm-hmm. I think with Doughty and Kopitar at this stage of their career, this advanced age, you're almost living a little bit on borrowed time again. Like, where if you spend young capital to win now, that window is so small that you're going to find yourself with another prolonged retool. I don't think they're going to have to rebuild, but another retool. I think Blake is wise to maybe sit on a pair of jacks rather than trying to draw aces right now. It's just where I think he is. And I think if they make the playoffs for a couple or a few years, I think you rebuild that fan base. I mean, it's not a great fan base in terms of numbers. We can see that, on the business side of things, in terms of Google searches and all of that. If you rebuild that and you bring the casual fans back into the building and you solidify that by making the playoffs for a couple of years, by being cautious, I think that's the way to go.
Don't go all in.
Don't go all in. Don't bank on Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar, because their productivity is going to be short-lived.
Don't be the teams you and I cover, in other words.
Hey, Sidney Crosby's
that was too easy.
36.
Yeah, Bergeron and Krejci. Yeah. Look, hey, I wrote it yesterday, Dan. You got players like that. Sooner or later, you got to turn the page. And I think the Bruins have done sort of they've gone a little more all in, obviously, than what you're suggesting the Kings keep doing. So I think with the Penguins and Bruins, they need to start to really rebuild that draft capital that they don't have right now. But listen, Dan, before I let you go, I want to tell our viewers and kind of just talk about National Hockey Now and how much we're growing. This is your free ad space here, my friend.
Well, if it's the National Hockey Now podcast, I better get some free ads. No, you know what, Jimmy? You've been if you weren't the first name on the dotted line, you were the second. Doing that there in Boston, and it's funny. We used to have meetings on Zoom, like the four of us, you, me, Colorado, and Sheng in San Jose, and then George Richards was like number 5, and it's like, wow, we're really doing something here. And I look back at how much fun we were having, no idea what was coming, that now we're in 20 markets across the NHL. We're I don't want to give away exact numbers here, but let's just say we're worth millions at this point, and we're still in the infancy of our growth. And it's insane from where we've come to where we are. And we're right now sitting at about that 50, maybe 60 million readers per year level. And that's only going up. Like James Nichols just came on board in New Jersey. We're kind of like, okay, yeah, James, you can do this part-time. And the dude's killing it. Like, the Devils fans came out of the woodwork. We're like, where do all these people come from? Mike Aguelo in Buffalo and Nate Brown in Chicago. Nate's not a household name. He, had 500 Twitter followers when he started, maybe less. And the dude is absolutely crushing it in Chicago. I think, and if I tell people one thing and people go, National Hockey Now, it was at the Stanley Cup final. I was surprised how many people had been following us very closely in some of the big wigs, et cetera.
Yep.
And one thing I say is, listen, we're not hiring season ticket holders to do this job. We're not taking kids out of college and putting, the full backpack on them and saying, good luck as our primary folks. We're getting some of the best hockey writers in the country. I mean, we've got a few Hall of Famers on staff, for gosh sake. And
look at Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit is a pair, and Pittsburgh, Dave Molinari, and I think someday George Richards will be in there. It's craziness, Jimmy, how far we've come, and sooner than later, they keep promising me this, the tech guys, we're going to have this universal subscription too, where if you subscribe to Boston or Pittsburgh, now you get all 20 sites, for that same price. They've been promising me that for a year, but I think we're within the final couple of weeks now.
Yeah, I think too, the interesting thing, Dan, is that it happened basically in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you think that ironically helped or
no, it certainly did not help.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, me neither. But I just think that it was able to happen in the middle of that is pretty astonishing, and I think.
Well, we figured something out. We have hyper served hockey fans, whereas listen, bloggers think I hate them, and I really don't. I get mad when somebody on their couch equates what they're doing with what a professional beat writer who's on the road, 100 days out of a year or 200 days out of a year. I get mad when they're like, "Oh, I'm doing the same thing."
Yep.
Let's pull back on that a little bit. And I think just the quality and what we've been able to figure out in terms of talking with hockey fans every day, talking about, okay, here's what the trade market. I mean, and I think that it takes our experience to do that. To be able to look from the inside out, but also the outside in, and know what your team needs and where it's available. Anybody can write a trade for Connor McDavid story.
Yeah,
that's kind of easy. It's finding those guys on the third and fourth line somewhere else who have something more to give. And with our contacts, your extreme Rolodex, and just kind of a quick pat on the back for us. Dave Molinari and I, within 48 hours of Ron Hextall's termination in Pittsburgh, put out 10 candidates for the Penguins GM job. We hit on 5 finalists.
Yeah.
It took the Fenway group 4 or 5 weeks to figure out what we knew in 48 hours.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that's really the great thing of our network, that readers can trust us. They don't always agree. As well as anybody, they can get mad. Hockey fans can get mad when they disagree with us. But we're always talking to them. We
got a viewer asking right now, Del Carey asking us, do we plan to expand to Carolina anytime soon?
What day is today?
It would be June 23rd.
Oh, did I let a cat out of the bag? Actually, Jimmy, here's the hold up on Carolina. We've got a writer contract signed.
Yep.
Some jackwagon about a year and a half ago snagged CarolinaHockeyNow.com and won't give it to us without us paying exorbitant sums.
I hate that.
He's
probably not even using it, right?
No, well, they can't.
Yeah.
If they try to use it, we own them.
Yeah.
But as long as they don't use it, they swim in a little bit of a gray area where then we have to prove they're cyber squatting, which isn't that difficult anymore with the new laws. But
I like that term, cyber squatting.
Well, that's actually what it's really called. And so we're taking a couple days to try to get the proper domain name. These idiots actually sent me a message. There's a network out there that really uses these Hockey Now domains, and we think that's a pretty valuable one. I'm like, I am the network. And would you like to meet my lawyer?
It's Dan, until I got in with you, I didn't realize the amount of emails like that you'll get. These companies from God knows where, from Siberia or something. We'd like to put a guest post about technology on your site. Like, why would I want a guest post about technology on my site?
Yeah, some Saudi Arabian casino.
Yeah.
No one in Boston's going to be gambling on the Saudi casino. This isn't like the golf tour where you take them on a run. We actually have some standards.
Yep. And Gary says, great time, guys. I love it. He's a Habs fan, and of course we have Montreal hockey now. Mark Dumont up there. That's going well. They're going to be an interesting team again at the draft. How
much fun would they be to cover right now?
Oh gosh,
because there's just infinite storylines. Like with Pittsburgh, we're just learning them, and Boston, you're kind of unraveling them to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop. In Montreal, they're just unlimited. Boom. Every player is either available or going to be long term, struggling, succeeding. It's fantastic.
It's unreal. Well, it's good stuff, man. Look, we're only going to get bigger from here, and I'm excited to be doing this. And Dan, we will talk to you. I'm sure, obviously, we'll have you on here again. But I wish you a wonderful weekend before you head to Nashville. Do yourself a favor, please, considering all the travel and different time zones you've been writing in. Get some sleep, my friend.
I tried last night, and it was the weirdest thing. I laid down at like 1 o'clock, which is really early for me. By 2 o'clock, I had the laptop open and I was working on spreadsheets for some business folks who've been asking for them. And it's just like, it's not my watch is on Pacific time still.
Oh, geez.
Well, this watch anyway is on Pacific. Yeah. I have a couple watches on Central time. And
what about your appetite?
That's odd. I don't have one. It's kind of weird.
Okay. Yeah, because it takes me a while when I go out west and come back to get my dinner, lunch, and all that. It's never really in order. It's never really normal times in our business, no matter where you are. But yeah, I'll find myself eating at like 11.
Well, that's how I do it normally here in Pittsburgh, except everything is closed but Taco Bell. But in Vegas, I'm eating at 10, 11 o'clock at night, Pacific time.
Pacific, which is like one, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, ooh, Nathan's hot dogs, 2 for $10. Yes, I will. New York City pizza, $5. Yes, I will.
And man, you don't look like you put on any weight.
Oh, I lost weight actually out there. Yeah,
that's amazing, man.
Well, when you walk
out or what?
In 100-degree heat, which I made a point to do.
There you go, man. That will do it. Well, listen, thanks for joining us, Dan. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Have fun.
All right, Dan Kingerski joining us here on the National Hockey Now podcast. I'm going to bring in Blake before we close it up. Blake, that was a good maiden voyage, huh?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yep. Hey, I was asking, I get the background there. You were telling me what that jersey is behind you. You want to tell the viewers, the Bridgewater Bandits?
So my senior year of high school, we do a half season before the high school season approaches. I played for the Boston Bandits, and in the championship game, I was wearing that jersey up there. And I got a little bit of a skate to the throat/neck area. I laid a hit on a kid. He kind of did a 180 horizontal wise, and his skate came and cut me right there. Blood still all over the jersey, and I'm never going to wash it. No, just held it up on the bench. My dad was a coach. He wasn't leaving.
They stitched you up or what?
A couple butterfly stitches. We're all right.
Okay. It wasn't bad. No Clint Malarchuk thing going on here, right?
No.
I don't know if you're too young to remember that, but he was a
goalie. Nothing too bad, like serious, like no paramedics and whatnot.
Google that. It's pretty gross, man. Goalie for the Buffalo Sabres actually really screwed
I've seen that.
Yeah.
That is it makes me want to throw up every time I see something.
Yeah, man. I remember that. Scary stuff. Interesting enough, you bring that up, and this is random, and we'll wind it up here in a sec, but there's a picture that we have in our library from the Florida Bruins series, and it was Bergeron, similar situation, what you're saying. He laid a hit on a guy, and the guy went head over heels.
Mm-hmm.
The blade is like right there, just missing him. And I remember saying to Joe Haggerty, because he used the picture in the game, in the post-game article, and I said, dude, did you see that? I didn't catch that during the game. Nobody spoke about it. He's like, He's like, yeah, that could have been a lot worse than it was. Like, wow.
Something like that happened to me. It was scary, dude.
Yeah.
Thinking about it after, you're like, that was 2 inches from my jugular. Jesus.
You never know. Well, listen, buddy, good job. We will. We're going to have multiple episodes next week with the draft and, of course, free agency. We'll do a free agency special, do a draft special, and we'll tee things up probably on Tuesday. I'll get some more good guests for us. So thanks to everyone out there for joining us here on the first National Hockey Now podcast. I'm Jimmy Murphy. He's Blake Thorne. Thanks to our guest, Dan Kingerski, and Jeff Marek. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for watching, guys.